Hello, everyone. Welcome to a speaking journey where you are going to uncover the process great speakers use to become excellent. Joining me today is Akshay Abraham. As you can see, he's still setting up his camera. Akshay Abraham, if I have to introduce him in one line or one phrase, that would be Sharma ji ka beta. You know, the overachiever, software engineer by profession, a person who is an avid runner, a person who's a founder of a public speaking club called Bright Hearts Toastmasters Club, a person who is a founder of Humble Bumble Book Club, and most importantly, a brother from another mother, Akshay.
Hey, thank you for that lovely introduction. Great to be here.
Awesome. So, viewers, in the next 20 minutes, you are going to uncover the processes and behind the scenes of how Akshay goes about his speaking journey. Akshay, I have a request from you so that the next 20 minutes is smooth. Can I make that request?
Sure.
Yeah. So, in the next 20 minutes, I want you to be at your candid best
Yeah,
so
no,
that
I
everyone
can't.
understands exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to go with like 70% candid. 100 might land me in jail. So
Try pushing that 70 a little bit.
I can give you 75.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. All right. So, first question. Now, when you are on stage and when people see you speaking, the problem is that everyone sees the final product, right? Nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes. So, Akshay, take me and the audience through what is the process you go through from the time you know that you have to deliver a speech at a given date.
Sure. So the process would differ based on what's at stake. There are two distinct processes I follow. One is for speeches which are delivered either at a regular Toastmasters club meeting where there's no competition involved. And then there are the speeches which I prepare for at a contest level, which is at any level, club, area, division, and district. When it comes to my preparation for speeches at a just a weekly meeting level, I don't put too much pressure on myself. I try to have fun with the script, and I'm sure this is something I've seen before. When it comes to club level speeches, I like to experiment a lot with content, with humor, with structure, with anecdotes, with body language, with props, because I see these weekly Toastmasters meetings as an avenue to try things out. I also ensure not to really go through a rigorous rehearsal process when it comes to weekly Toastmasters meetings and the speeches involved there because I do enjoy a bit of improvisation when it comes to regular pathways speeches in Toastmasters or just speeches where I'm delivering them at a non competitive level. Now, when it comes to a competitive level, whether it's club, area, division, or district,
Akshay,
I
I need to
like to.
pause you here.
Mhm,
Your audio seems to have a lot of background noise. So,
mhm.
just see if you can sort that out very quickly.
Sure, let me try that out.
Yeah, so whilst Akshay is doing that, just to put in context what Akshay was talking about in terms of Toastmasters, Toastmasters as is a public speaking organization, and there are multiple kinds of speeches that a Toastmaster goes through. So, Akshay, can you check your audio right now?
Yes, is this better?
Not really. There's still that background noise when you speak. That's
Oh,
okay. I think
interesting.
we can manage. I'm able to hear you properly. I'm able to understand you properly, so should not be a problem.
Okay, all right, cool. Right, so when it comes to preparing for speeches at a competitive level, such as contests, the process I adopt is quite different. So, first and foremost, I like to think of what is the value I can give to the audience and what is the original idea I can present in my speech. The problem most speakers go through, especially if you've been delivering speeches for a very long time at a competitive level, is that you run out of ideas and subsequently you run out of ways to give value to the audience. What I like to do is, first of all, come up with a really great original idea that has a lot of value, then prepare the script. My script preparation process usually involves at least about a week of fine tuning the content. And 6 or 7 days prior to the contest, it's all about practice, where I just practice, practice, practice. And the improv element I lend myself during non-competitive speeches I completely remove when it comes to competitive speeches, because I think it's very, very important that at a competitive level you deliver scripts that are well rehearsed 3 or 4 dozen times.
Interesting that you mentioned about practice 3 or 4 dozen times. So can you tell us about a little bit more about that? How do you see your practices usually?
So when it comes to the specific number of 3 or 4 dozen times or 48 times, in fact, there was a district contest where I probably rehearsed that speech at least 80 to 90 times. The reason I vouch for people to do this is so that when you go on stage, the speech just kind of flows out of you and you don't have to worry about forgetting content. And it's when you don't have to worry about forgetting content that you end up really being your best self in terms of delivery and in terms of vocal variety, in terms of gestures, in terms of everything. Now, to answer a specific question of how do my rehearsals look like, I try not to bore myself by preparing for 3 to 4 hours at a stretch. I like to maybe practice for about an hour, then take a break of about, say, 2 to 3 hours, then maybe an hour again. This is especially in the lead up towards the competition. And maybe on days which are further away from the competition, like 7 days before or 6 days before, just maybe 30 minutes every night is what I would do. Um, and one pro tip is when it comes to contests, people tend to over practice their introductions and bodies and under practice their conclusions. I have seen this happen so often. Just because it's a natural human instinct that when you have a speech, you want to start from start to finish, from start to finish, from start to finish. One piece of advice I'd like to give to people that works for me is that divide your speech into three distinct sections and practice each of them separately. In fact, I would even go so far as to say when you start your speech practices, start by practicing the third half of your speech, which is the conclusion. Because it's when you practice that half first, you're kind of the most invested and convinced on how your speech is going to work.
Interesting. So if I were to decode what you said entirely is original speeches, value, and practice 3 4 dozen times, even if it is very important speech, then 80 90 100 times,
Yeah,
right?
especially if you want to win when the competition is really, really tough. I would recommend do that. And even when the competition isn't tough, my general philosophy is whether you're in a contest with tough opponents or easy opponents, you just go in with the mindset of crushing everyone else. And in order to crush everyone else, it has to come with a serious amount of practice.
Great, great. So we spoke in depth about the contest aspect. Now, in a generic setting, imagine if it is a non Toastmaster setting. What do you think is the most important element when it comes to the public speaking?
Know your audience. I've delivered a lot of presentations and even event hosting gigs at a corporate level. And then the audience is completely different. These are not people who come to Toastmasters, who come to a public speaking platform and are accustomed to people telling them to raise their hands for questions, or who are accustomed to answering questions which are asked or put forward by hosts. So it's very important to know your audience. If you're at a corporate setting and you're delivering a presentation in front of your manager and like 5, 6 other employees, it's very likely you kind of want to tone down on the flamboyance and focus more on the content and the confidence. Of course, if the speech is more for an entertainment perspective, such as in Toastmasters or even an event hosting gig, focus more on the theater and the entertainment bit. right? So know your audience before you open your mouth.
Awesome. So know your audience. I think this is absolutely crucial as well. So many people just think about, okay, what is the best thing that I can do, and forget about what does the audience actually want. Great. Now, one more thing that I wanted to ask you was, and this is something that I have been curious about myself. Um, you have delivered a lot of speeches. Can you give me a ballpark number as to the number of on-stage speeches you must have given, including your um, hosting and all of that together?
Oh, it's uh, easily over 120, 130.
Right. So, in all of this, across all of these years, I'm sure there must have been some time or sometimes, a few times, where you must have bombed on stage. What was the most
Yes.
memorable one for you?
Oh, a lot of them. I believe I didn't do a very good job at a district contest, which was held by Toastmasters in 2023. I went on stage with a speech which I thought was really good, but in the lead up towards the competition, I ended up modifying that speech so many times, 9 to 10 hours before the actual contest. Ended up going on stage and delivering something that a lot of sections weren't even reviewed by my mentors. So as a result, that one really didn't go well for me. And I would say that was my worst contest level speech. And it kind of taught me the important lesson which I just reiterated or rather iterated earlier, which is you have to know your audience, right? And more than knowing your audience, it's very important to deliver a speech for the audience. When you deliver a speech for the audience, it's very unlikely you're going to bomb. When you don't deliver a speech for the audience and deliver it for yourself, there's a very good chance that it's not going to work out. At a club level, I wouldn't say there's anything that's quote unquote bombed, but I do have the habit of really pushing the boundaries of the kind of things I say and do at club level speeches. So a lot of them I go in with the mindset that, okay, I know this is not going to work for a lot of people, but I'm very curious to see how the outcome is. So those are more of like controlled explosions, right? I go in there, I know what's going to happen, and it's very interesting to dissect the audience's reactions. And I think it's really important to have those controlled explosions at a low stakes environment so that when the high stakes are there, you know what you need to do and to not explode.
Absolutely. So you spoke about that district final speech. You bombed on stage, or rather, the audience didn't receive as you expected or hoped they would receive.
Mhm.
So after that, what did you do? How did you react?
I think the approach after that speech, when you say how did I react, do you mean how did I react after that
Not right
specific
after,
concept?
but how did you start your comeback for the
Well,
next
I
speech?
started by focusing more on speeches that have value for the audience. I've started to focus more on the relatability of my speeches. I tend to be a very unrelatable person because of how unique I am as a what a unique little butterfly I am. So I tend to deliver a lot of unrelatable speeches, but I think that was a great wake up call for me because over the course of that next 1 year, I learned how to really deliver speeches for the audience, and I think it worked out well because the subsequent year I ended up winning the district contest, all thanks to that one bomb.
Oh, wow. So the moment that you bombed on stage, not the moment that you bombed on stage, but when you bombed on stage, you went back, you reworked on your craft, and then you came back stronger. And you mentioned this repeatedly, and I think this is the theme of the entire conversation, to know the audience a lot more. So, what are some of the things that you do to know and understand your audience?
Understand the demographic. I think the first thing is the age, or rather, the average age of your crowd is really important. Um, are you delivering a speech which is more catered towards college students? Are you delivering speeches which are more catered towards like millennials who are, say, our age in their 30s to 40s or above the age of 28? Are you talking to people between the ages of 21 to 27? all of this makes a big difference in the way you choose your content. And what I like to do generally is right before I deliver a speech, in the days leading up to it, if it's at a contest level, especially, or at an external place like a college or a corporate, I always like to talk to the event coordinator to understand what kind of crowd I'm about to expect.
Mhm.
To give a
Interesting.
classic example, I think one thing that tends to happen quite often is there's a certain age group of people. Say, there's no specific age group, but let's say there's a demographic of married people, right? So I've noticed that married people tend to deliver a lot of marriage-related speeches, right? And such speeches work if your audience also have better halves themselves, right? But if you're delivering a speech related to the perils or the benefits of, say, marriage in front of, say, a group of 40 people, 25 of whom are nowhere close to being married, you maybe have to go back to the drawing board and assess whether that topic was right for this audience. And this is just one such example. Another classic example is leveraging Toastmasters as a platform to deliver overly overly technical talks. For example, as part of one of my controlled explosions, I delivered an entire speech, or rather a presentation on generative AI about 8 months ago, completely knowing that this was not the audience for it, right? And the reception was as expected, right? So to sum it up, know your audience and do a bit of research and groundwork before you head in there with your script.
I think there are one or two things, or rather two or three things that has come on repeatedly. One is definitely know your audience. Second is experiment and practice and look at how your experiments are going on by delivering those speeches in, let's say, for example, a Toastmasters club or something like that, and continually improve yourself from each experience. Right?
Yep. Yep.
Great. This is exactly what I wanted to go through in the 20 minutes. We are about 18 odd minutes right now. Last
Woo!
question for you. One last question. What are you taking away from this conversation?
Well, what I am going to take away from this conversation is that this is Ehab Fysel is one of the most handsome hosts I have ever had the privilege of being invited by. In addition to that, it only makes things better that he's such a fluent public speaker and a wonderful interviewer who knows how to ask all the right questions. So, thank you for having me. My takeaway is to definitely. Dress better so that I can at least match your riz next time, because I definitely feel a little underdressed and sweaty compared to you right now. Nonetheless, thank you for having me.
That was not scripted at all, believe it or not. And Akshay, that is what I meant in the beginning by be your candid self. I think towards the end is when you truly brought out your true colors.
Ah,
All
uh,
right, everyone. I'll see you in the next live. Until then, keep knowing your audience and keep practicing and improving yourself to become a better public speaker. Bye bye.
bye.